Yo, you so someone kind of broke it down, some shit you're working on. You and Lil Jon got a whole album coming?
Yeah.
So for people who are not aware, I kind of give you a lot of credit to obviously the Bay Area, but there was this Atlanta era that you were very instrumental in bringing to the forefront of like commercial music, and Lil Jon and the East Side Boys. I remember that first song I ever heard you on with them. That's my shit. Let my nuts go. Bitch.
That's super underground, by the way, too. But it was the shit.
Oh my God, that song is a classic. And that was the first, like the end of it when Lil Jon's like, I heard you all on my nuts like a trick. I heard you was a jailhouse bitch. But you had like a lot to do with the crunk era kind of being pushed through on the mainstream front, in terms of like, you were like one of the first artists outside of the South that embraced that. I mean, obviously, you know, you worked with 3 6 Mafia back in the day too and all that. But what was that Atlanta? Because what year did you end up moving to Atlanta?
93.
Crazy.
93, yeah. Wasn't a lot of music going on out there. LaFace Records was there.
Outkast.
I mean, Outkast was a year after I moved there. But it was, when I first got there, it was like TLC and Tony Braxton. LaFace was like in a real R&B space.
Right.
They hadn't yet done Outkast yet. And there was some things moving around. Jermaine Dupri was active, but he
So Def was bubbling.
He was just doing Crisscross, right. And it was, you know, it was a good time to be in Atlanta because big things were about to happen. But my whole thing is, a lot of people don't know my connection with New Orleans. My mother's from New Orleans, and I spent a lot of my childhood in New Orleans. So that's a very different sound than anywhere else.
For sure.
With the jazz and the second line dancing, and just, you know, my cousins were in marching bands and they were just into whatever, you know, the hot dance, whatever. And I just kind of always had that New Orleans culture embedded in me. But I'm growing up in LA, moved to the Bay. I'm getting all these different flavors, and no one really knows this unless you really know the Too Short history. I actually lived in Atlanta for about a year when I was a kid, a little over a year.
Wow.
I was in the 7th grade, part of the 7th grade and part of the 8th grade. We moved there, and I guess my mother wasn't feeling the vibe, and we moved back to California. And, you know, I just have all these things musically in me from a kid. So when I get to Atlanta and I move to Atlanta, I'm already on, you know, probably my 4th platinum album. So I'm showing up to Atlanta and I'm on like some Michael Jackson status, you know? And
you're
like,
one of the biggest rappers in the world.
Yeah, they're just like
93?
loving Too Short. So I'm looking at Bobby Brown out there having fun. I'm bumping into Tupac.
Right.
I'm like, oh shit, I'm about to have me some fun out here in Atlanta. Right. And had a lot of fun.
Right.
But at the same time, the music scene was accelerating. It was just, you know, the T.I.s and the Outcasts were just coming, you know, left and right, just new artists. And Atlanta was getting hot. So the reason why I'm embedded in the crunk culture is because I was a fan of Lil Jon as a DJ. He's a pretty popular DJ before anybody knew him in the world.
Right.
In Atlanta. And he was also producing records for So Def. He produced some big records. He was in the scene.
Right.
But I was a real big fan of the way he would DJ because he DJ'd different than other DJs. His whole set was all about the crowd.
Rocking the mic?
Just, he was like doing it like a rapper. Like he was rocking the crowd, but he was playing songs and his parties would just go up. And I was like, I like this dude. Then he put out a record. He put out a record called Who You With.
Yep.
And nobody was rapping on there. It was a bunch of chants. So I had not really had a relationship with him at all. We hadn't talked, or we probably said what's up. And I just went to him one day and I said, man, you should let me do the remix on that song and put some raps on there. And he was like, nah, we should just do some new shit. And I'm like, all right, we'll come by the studio. And he came by when I wasn't there. And he just left this song. It had vocals on it. It was the song was called Couldn't Be a Better Player. That's what I named it. But he was just doing those chants. He always did those chants. And he left that record. I rapped on it. I rapped 3 full verses, and we shot a video to it. And it just became like, you know, in that region.
What record was that?
That was
that Let My Nuts Go?
No, it was before that.
Because you started out by saying you couldn't be a better player than me, even if you fucked every day of the week.
Couldn't Be a Better Player was the first song we did.
Got it.
And it just went big. So we just started making records together. Lil Jon, at the time, when he put out Who You With, he signed Who You With. He signed to a small label, and
prior to TVT.
Yeah. And he was having this dispute. You know, they weren't seeing eye to eye, and I always tell people there's no gangster shit involved in nothing. The guy who had the contract with John was somebody that I had worked with,
right?
And you know, it was just I asked Lil Jon what's the problem. You know, they was both saying F each other.
Yeah.
And his version was, well, I spent money on Lil Jon, and I'm not budging until I get my money back.
Yeah.
Lil Jon's version was, well, man, I'm not happy, so I'm not making music with him. So I just figured out what the amount was, put whatever the sauce on it, paid him. It was like, man, I got business with Lil Jon. And, you know, it wasn't like I was buying out some super hot artist or something. But Lil Jon had offers on the table, like the TVT and some other stuff, and it was stopping him from getting there. So I basically just stepped in, played the stepping stone. You know, I said, look, I bought you out the contract. You free. You know, I could be like saying sign to me or something, but I would much rather, because he works for So Def. Right. He's a DJ who's breaking records. I realized his full potential. I heard the beats, and I'm like, do what you got to do. Just put me on the forever list of Lil Jon beats. You know, that was my pay, and you know, it paid off. I had people in my ear back then going, "Man, that's Lil Jon. Why you didn't sign him? You had him." I'm like, "No, bro." And then, you know,
it paid off because one of the biggest hip hop songs of all time ended up being "Blow the Whistle."
Yeah, and he did "Shake That Monkey," so he
which is my shit, by the way.
So I'm at a point in my career when he does those two songs, 2004, 5 was when we recorded them. I'm like potentially like on the fence. You know, could I go, you know, fall over with the other OGs who are like retiring one after the other, not voluntarily.
Right. Because you had retired and...
but mine was voluntary.
Yeah.
You know, the rap game will retire you.
For sure.
It will park you, and nobody will call you anymore. And, you know, those songs gave me like the infinite extension of my career.
Forever.
Yeah. So.
No, that's a fact, dude. I think a lot of people don't understand, or they're very surprised when they learn that Blow the Whistle is produced by someone from Atlanta.
So in essence, Lil Jon is, you know, forever like, you know, my guy because of what he's done for me, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So, you know, and then he becomes super instrumental in the emergence of crunk music. He is the main player.
He's the face of it.
Yeah, and then he comes over to California and catches wind of the hyphy movement, and he starts giving people hyphy records, not just Bay Area people either. He went and gave Yin Yang some hyphy songs, and P.D. Pablo.
He also did Tell Me When to Go, right?
Yes, he did. So he's
I mean, those are those are the two biggest Bay Area rap songs.
I wouldn't say those were the best hyphy songs. I would just say,
no, but they're the two biggest Bay Areas. I mean, like obviously E40, MC Hammer and all that. But
me and E40 had a phone call one day, and we decided to stamp the hyphy movement.
Yeah,
and we like, I like what the youngsters are doing. Let's do something.
Because you guys are OGs at that point.
Yeah, let's do something to help it move. He did Tell Me When to Go. I did Blow the Whistle. We did some more little sprinkles of other songs with the vibe, and we supported the movement. We never stepped up and said, this is our movement. It was always the little homies. It was always
the young generation. Yeah,
it was. Mac Dre is kind of up there, but it was still Mac Dre, Keek the Sneak,
right,
and, you know, the Federation and the team and all these groups that, you know, like the Pack and all these groups that were thriving at the time. So, you know, I think that helping Lil Jon get in the game, he did it on his own. I just got the obstacle out the way.
You're very instrumental in it, for sure. And then this new album,
but it helped music a lot. We got a lot of songs for that movie.
Oh man,
for that one thing, he gave us a lot of music.
You know, I go back and listen to Crunk Juice and Kings of Crunk so much.
Yeah,
so much. Those two albums are just, I mean, man. And then some of the collaborations he was putting together, like putting Ice Cube and Nas on Grand Finale, and like, just some of the shit. Like Lil Jon was just throwing so much gumbo into the pot that you wouldn't even expect to go crazy. To be like, oh, this is crazy. Like,
yeah, he's got that song "Turn Down for What."
Of course.
And he, it sounds like a Lil Jon beat, but he didn't produce that. I think maybe DJ Snake produced it.
Snake did, yeah.
Yeah, but Lil Jon says what, maybe 10, 12 words?
I think he might say like, yeah, 10, maybe 10.
And it's like, he's like, it's the biggest shit ever. All I said was 10 words.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
That's amazing, man. Not a lot of us could make a 10-word song.
Sonically,
a classic.
where is this album that you guys are working on? Is it more the like newer era stuff? Because you guys,
So you got to get the big picture, man. So for a long time now, probably since COVID, I've probably recorded 100 Too Short songs. 75 songs, I don't know.
Right.
But then I also recorded another 50 songs with Mount Westmore.
Right.
And always doing shows, always
you're very busy
on this and that and just doing stuff, but not really announcing to people how much time I really spend in the studio, really making dope ass records that I really haven't been putting out, and it's a lot of them.
You're sparring nonstop. Yeah,
I sit people around and start playing Too Short songs. They're like, "What the fuck is your problem? Why is this shit not out?" But there was always a plan, and I knew that the Freaky Tales movie was coming. This has been years in the making. Like, the deal of the process of making the movie has probably been a 4-year process.
Right.
You know.
Now I remember Simba hit me pretty early on and was like, "Don't tell anybody I'm about to play Too Short in a movie." And I was like, "What?"
So I was on when they were trying to get to the part where they even shoot the movie, you know, before the casting.
For sure.
And I just figured, let's just time this out and wait till the movie comes out, and then I'll start my little movement. So I have a series of albums. It's called Sir Too Short. That was originally my name before Too Short. Right. When I first broke out and I like, this is me, I was Sir Too Short. I used to write it, tag it everywhere all over the Bay. Anywhere I would stop for 5 minutes, I would tag Sir Too Short. And I decided to make a throwback album.
Ant Banks?
Well, Ant Banks' production is all over it.
Okay, that's why
I did a lot of music with Ant Banks recently. Yeah. So, and he was, I couldn't do it without him. So
player short shit.
Yeah, so the first installment is the sort of me and Ant Banks flavor. It's real Bay. I knew what the movie was going to be about. I knew the movie was going to be set in 1987. So instead of me trying to, put out an album and like, Kendrick's coming out next week, I'm coming out the weekend, I'm like, I'm just going to go in my zone and make some OG-ass Too Short shit. So that's what I did. And then I was trying to do one song that me and Lil Jon had recorded about 6-7 years ago. It was laying around. Ghazi from Empire.
Shout out to Ghazi.
Heard the song way back when. So every 2 years he goes, "Hey man, let's put out that Lil Jon song." I'm like, all right. And then 2 years later, let's put that song out. So once again, knowing I'm getting ready to try to put something out with the movie, he's like, "You got to put that Lil Jon song on there." So I called Lil Jon to let's make it new again. And he comes to the studio and we did something. I don't even know. We messed with that song a little bit, but we did something. And he's like, "I'm gonna leave you some beats," and he just leaves me some beats. This is like on a Monday. I sent him. He probably gave me like 20 beats to listen to. A week later, I sent him like 14 songs recorded, and he was like, "Oh shit, are you serious, huh?" And he sent me like 15 more beats, and I'm like, started recording on those. I'm like just doing them because they're Lil Jon beats. I'm grabbing everything I got and just, because I've been recording for years. Yeah. I'm like, I got a lot of shit. And then he's like, all right, send me another pack of beats. I'm like, dude, I have more than enough for the album. He said, well, shit, make 2 albums. I'm like, all right, that's what I'll do then. So what happens after the throwback albums, So Too Short Volume 1, is the Lil Jon album, which is called Drink and Smoke. And it's a little more up tempo. It's a little more, it's reminiscent of the songs that me and Lil Jon made together. And then it's so ignorant, the topics, the shit talking. All the OGs are like, not all the OGs, but the OG idea is like, you're in your 50s, you should be a mentor, and you should say responsible things on songs now because you have matured. And not Too Short. I'm like right where the fuck I was at in 1988. I can't see being a character called Too Short and then making the character grow the fuck up